I'm very eager to hear about your what you do. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like your where how you got into this and what your background is?
So Betsy and I started working together, I think, well, more than 5, maybe 7 years ago.
More than
Um,
70.
Virtually, we were part of a health coach training program on the faculty, and we were mentor coaches. And then Betsy became the assistant director of the program. It was the Adapt Functional Health Coaching Program, and about 1,000 students went through it in a 5-year time. And we started working together, also separately. And then when the school closed down, because the person who started it decided that he wanted to go in a different direction, the two of us continued working together. And Betsy started mentioned to me that she always wanted to bring improv and coaching together. And that's where we got started on our journey, which has now resulted in a book called Coaching with a Twist. And Betsy, maybe you want to say something about what it was that brought you and I to that very moment where we thought, okay, this is something that coaches could really use.
Yeah. So my background prior to becoming a health coach in 2014 was in comedy. I was a comedian and television writer, and with many years doing improv comedy. And I started to notice that there were a lot of overlap in skill between basically motivational interviewing or just listening, listening and
Mhm.
responding was really the same thing as improv. And what we had noticed, because we were mentoring a lot of new coaches, is they were incredibly serious and always thinking, am I doing this right? And they were sort of in their heads worrying about their performance rather than relaxing into the conversation and being present. And it occurred to me that improv would be a really great way to make that transition. So they knew the skills, but to really embody them, we found that doing it through play. So it was an experiment in the beginning, but it worked. And it grew from a sort of one-off workshop to a series. And then we just, we had been doing a lot of different things for a while. We were doing all kinds of mentor coaching, and we had a business incubation group, but we kind of saw this as a unique contribution. And we adapted the improv to be specific to coaching skill or coaching and communication skill. So it's not just classic improv games, although there might be some of those, but we've adapted them to be really useful for coaches.
I think that's brilliant. I think that that would help coaches to become a lot more comfortable with coaching too,
Mhm. It,
much less the clients.
Right.
yeah, it's the way that we've adapted it, and Betsy coined this recently, I really like it, is it's skills based. It's a skills based approach to learning. So, like Betsy just said, we use and tweak the improv um, exercise to fit the particular skill that we're trying to teach. And then the whole container of improv being a place where you don't make mistakes and you have happy accidents, and the way the rules, you're showing up just to be there and say yes to whatever comes and contribute as well as receive. It's such a great way to learn. For me, being an experiential learner, I come from more of the somatic space. So I taught movement technique for many years, and um, did I can I did self-defense, and I taught I took martial arts. And so bringing all of that into the space with Betsy, it's so body-based, even on camera, um, even on a Zoom call, it works. And then sometimes it works even better than in person. So it's fun. And it's effective.
Okay, so Betsy, you trained at Mayo Clinic, and Amy, did you train at Adapt
I
or
trained at CTI, so
CTI?
Coach
Okay,
Training Institute. Mhm.
okay. And so I imagine that those blend nicely, don't they? If you took this improv back, like to Mayo Clinic or to CTI, how would that blend with how you were trained?
It's a good question, and I'm going to detour just a little bit to share because I did start out as a health coach at Mayo Clinic, and then later got ICF certified and started to shift, kind of add in what was unique to that training. And Amy went the other way. She started out ICF, and then when we worked together at Adapt, she also became NBHWC. And what we both found was that there were sort of unique approaches and skills in each of those different bodies and what they were looking for that really enhanced our capacity in both directions. And now I've forgotten your question, Cathy.
How does the improv transfer back? And if you took it back to what you were doing at those locations, how would it transfer? How would it
Yeah,
work?
got it. So when I trained at the Mayo Clinic, it was primarily a remote program, but there was a week where we went out to the clinic in Rochester, and that's where we did the MI training. And that really is improvisational. They say, here's the structure, here's what you're going to do, and then you just do it. And so that you're really experiencing in your body what it's like to use those skills, not just reading about it or talking about it. So it's an easy fix. And so what happened when we were working at Adapt, there was great, asynchronous training, as well as lectures and things. But we were responsible for helping the students actually put these things into practice and to use them. So in essence, we created a lot of lesson plans for them, which were based on experiential learning, which we think is really, there's actually a lot of evidence to show that that is much more sticky than other types of learning. So what we've designed isn't necessarily, it's not a way of coaching. It's not, here's a coaching technique, you should do this. It's a way of learning. So we sometimes say teach, but we don't really mean that because we create a condition in which people can learn. And we don't tell people things, we give them an experience and then ask them what they've learned from it. So it's very, very good for training. And we've gone into many programs and brought in our work. A lot of programs find it very useful as a way of up-leveling the skills. So they learn it all and it's like, okay, now what do I do with it? And it's a very safe environment for learning and practicing because you're with other coaches and the stakes are low. We get people into a more playful, relaxed state through play. So there's often group warm-ups and things before we do what we call coaching with a twist. And it actually is very similar to what we do in coaching when we're at our best, which is to bring our client into a visionary state, into a space where they're not trying to solve a problem or in distress, but starting to think about what's possible. So it really matches that.
I'm thinking about, the coactive training model is 5 3-day weekends or 5 3-day periods, and very playful, high experience. That was what attracted me to it. I also was a theater kid. I did theater and improv in high school, a little bit in college. I was always in and out of New York playing and taking classes. So when I went to Coactive, I felt really at home. They were really all throughout that 3-day period, you're seeing a demo and then doing it yourself. And so it would fit in wonderfully. I think the one thing that's different with our approach being improv is that they're telling you before you do it what you're going to get out of the exercise. In the way that we do it, we more give them the exercise, let them do it, and then elicit from them, what have you learned from this? And if there's something that we think they need, the participants or students need to get, that maybe they haven't mentioned, of course, we'll add it in. But usually they say what we were thinking and then some. And so I think, proactive and improv for coaches is it's a
It's a natural fit,
yeah,
isn't it?
natural fit.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
So how does improvisational practices, or how do they amplify coaching experience, creativity, and depth of skill?
Good question, Cathy.
I come up with those.
I love
By
it.
doing.
Mhm.
I think it's a pretty simple answer because it's we learn by doing. We have created the environment in which people can really, there's a safety in that environment for people to stretch from where they are. And I think, like in our book, we give away a lot of it. We give away pretty much all the lesson plans, and each one is designed around some skill that coaches need. But we also talk about what is the container? How do you run a group? How do you facilitate it? Because I think that's a very important part of it as well. So, people who do group coaching, there's a lot of similarity in the skill set in facilitation. So I think it's, ultimately, if we are coaching well, we're improvising.
Yeah, I want to add something kind of funny, which maybe you don't want to say, but there are times where we'll do a workshop online and people come in and for a conference or whatever is happening, and they drop off when they hear that it's experiential.
Yeah.
So we'll talk very briefly about coaching and improv and our approach, improv rules. And then, we do a demo and we either, if we're in one of our small series groups, then everybody stays in the room and does the work in front of each other. But in a larger group, we'll send them out into breakouts to do the work. Nobody sees it. Nobody's getting recorded. We don't usually record our sessions. And then when they come back, we get to talk about what is experienced. And some people really just want to come on. They turn their cameras off, they mute themselves, they have it in the background. Maybe they're listening, maybe they get distracted, maybe they're doing two things at once. The kind of work we do really asks them to stay in the room, stay present, be there throughout, just like we would be in a coaching session. And so for some people, they drop off, but the people who stay, I think, get a lot out of it.
Isn't that funny? They got preconceived notions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do coaches and leaders gain from embracing play, humor, and adaptability?
Well, certainly in this world, which is increasingly chaotic, I think the ability to stay present and to function. And there's a lot of research. I think Richard Boyatzis's work on coaching and before him Barbara Fredrickson, that really getting into, if we have our sympathetic nervous system going and we're like, in distress, it's very hard to make good decisions and to really connect even with other people. So finding ways to bring yourself into that state. And that's another thing that we do is we help people get into that state very quickly of the parasympathetic. And it doesn't mean it's boring or quiet. I mean, there's still a lot of excitement, maybe even excitement So people who haven't done these things before, it might be like, oh, I don't know, but it's a much more generative space, and it's really what we all need.
Mhm. Yeah, I've done a couple of courses recently about where people are sitting in the areas of calmness versus sort of heightened awareness versus extreme awareness, which might even be panic. So sort of the levels of a house. And whereas pre-COVID, people hung out on the bottom, sort of calm, chill out level quite a bit. The way it was described in this particular course is now everybody's hanging out on the second and third floor, and they're running up and down the stairs from the second and third floor. So flight, fright, freeze. Yeah. And I think there's another one is fawn. It's kind of a new one. And so we teach people through this process, we're teaching how to get yourself back into that space where you are open and ready and there to receive, being there for the other, listening to the other, for the other. We also do a lot of work. So one of the things that I didn't know when I worked at the ICF, I didn't even know what motivational interviewing was. I kind of heard of it, but there were so many things from NBH, from the National Board, but from the health and wellness side of coaching about behavioral change, about the stages of change that I didn't know about working with people who are showing up with red flags. And so this really puts us into a space of playfully, even though, I know we're talking about red flags, approaching subjects that we talk a lot about in coach training, but we don't actually experience. So most of what we do is real play. And sometimes we'll do role play. Like, for example, interruption for a leader was, I think, where we started this part, is a really important skill, being able to interrupt someone who's going on, like I am at the moment. And we do that in a playful way. So when it comes to interrupting in a boardroom, the leadership is, or the person who's leading is able to do so calmly because they've done so before. And that's the way that being playful around these very serious and important ways of communicating and being with others really helps the people that we work with get into a state very quickly, like Betsy said, that's more relaxed, more present.
Yeah, I don't
And
think
we're
that, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I don't think that people realized how much everybody changed, from 2020. And I think it's important what you're saying about addressing that and getting them to calm down and move back to where they were before. But how does using improv help to shift from fear to possibility?
Mm.
When you're playing and having fun, you are not, in and of itself, it is a state of that I think it pulls people out. I think it's why a lot of people want to play, although a lot of adults don't. And so we really focus on, we always start there of getting into that state of play, that state of creativity, that state of safety before we get into the specific coaching skills.
Well, one thing that's coming to mind that's interesting is we bring them into a state of play, but then when we do what we call coaching with a twist, where they're two-person conversations and it's a 5 to 7 minute practice of a skill set, a lot of times it goes really deep, really fast, really serious.
Yeah.
And so we set the stage for we're here to play together, we're here to learn together. We know that improv can actually heightened anxiety. And yet here we are, and let's make this as safe as possible. And then so after doing these kind of warm-ups and exercises, feeling more gelled as a group, when they go into these two-person conversations, the stage is really set to openly share, be very real. And it's shocking how deep it goes fast.
I also think coaches are actually very good at calming themselves and getting into that state. And one of the reasons I've loved coaching is it gave me the skills to calm myself down right away and to suddenly be present for someone else. And it is part of our skill set. It is part of the competencies that we need to how we show up. And so I think that coaches really do understand that. And, we all need to practice it more. I mean, I'm so grateful for having been a coach through this turbulent time, because every day I'm called to force myself into that state, whereas otherwise I might be overwhelmed by everything outside of coaching. So I think coaches are quite good at it, but the more we practice it, the better.
What are some improv practices that our listeners could try right away?
One exercise that we do, and normally we would of course do some warm-ups before this, but we call it's 3-word coaching. And so we would have a coaching conversation where the coach and the client get 3 words back and forth, and they have to communicate whatever it is they want to say with just 3 words.
Holiday madness pending. Desire for relaxation.
What's the ideal?
Be really present.
Present within madness.
Embrace the stillness.
What's the stillness?
Being, not doing.
Why is that important?
When doing, lost.
Please share more. Lost connection, self.
Connection is important.
What's self-connection feeling?
Warm, centered, grounded.
You know it.
I know it.
What's the plan?
Breathe. Center.
Happy holidays, Amy.
Thank you, Betsy.
Okay.
That was lovely. That's nice. That's nice to listen to, because you have all of that quiet and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes as coaches, we really rush and we say so much.
You feel like you have to ping pong it back and forth, and you don't.
I cheated there, and I did 3 in rows.
I saw that. I've never seen you do that before.
I know. Well,
no rules, only happy accidents.
That's right. But I think it's a really kind of fun for both parties. Like at first, I think people sometimes feel like that they're just thinking about how do I do it in 3 words, and it's really not about that. Like it doesn't matter if you sound like a cave person or, but when you get into it, it really is fun, and it really helps very quickly get to, for the client, get to what matters.
You have to focus on the words more.
You have to focus on what you want to say more.
Right.
What's really important.
And as the coach, what's so striking to me is there's no story. And so I learned from this that I don't really need the story that my client is telling me. It's okay to listen to it, but there's so much more beyond the story. That's, the movement, the way the client's showing up, the energy, the metaphor. And so this reminds me how little I actually need to coach somebody.
So how do you two work together generally? You teach people or teach coaches or coach coaches, or tell me about that.
Well, we are on opposite coasts. So we work mostly remotely, and we actually started out during the pandemic. So we initially everything we did was remote. Now we also do some in-person workshops. We do a lot of continuing education for coaches, coaches at all levels. But we also are increasingly doing this work with non-coaches because it's communication skills, and who can't use some coaching skill. But I would say primarily we're mostly working with coaches, and initially it was almost entirely health coaches because that was the world we had come from. But now it's really all kinds of coaches, and it really is the same skill set. But health coaches, of course, have additional training around health and wellness.
Right. Okay, and you said that you have a book. What is your book and where can we get it?
Well, this is the book.
So it's Coaching with a Twist, Improv for Coaches.
So I like the cover.
Thank you. That was a labor of love, that one.
Oh, yes, it was. So it is available really anywhere that you buy books. Or if you want a signed or personalized copy, you can get that from our website.
Okay. And your website is bnamentorcoaching.com, right?
Yeah.
We'll put that below the show notes so everybody can visit your site and see what you do. And you also offered a single session of BNA Coaching Salon, which is, tell us about that.
So the coaching salon is a monthly group that gets together. You can come just once if you want to, or you can do a subscription. And what we do is we also do supervision, but each time we have a different topic that we're covering. So next year in 2026, we're doing career development as well as coaching skills. So what we're using is each of the basic tenets of coaching, like vision will be the first one and long-term goals will be the second one. And so each time we'll visit a different area of coaching and spend the first hour, we talk about it, we maybe do some group exercises, we educate one another through discussion and conversation. And then in the second hour, we split people off into breakout rooms and they coach one another around the topic. So we'll be using coaching skills to help people develop their careers, and at the same time, they're refining their skill set. So if you're someone who is coaching and you want to work on vision, you're going to do vision for yourself. You're going to coach someone to do vision for another. And that's also refining the skill set. So it's a lovely group. It's a really nice community.
The only thing I would add to that is we really learn a lot from each other. There's a lot of wisdom in that room. Every coach has a different background and different skill and different point of view. And it's really helpful to each other to be able to learn from each other. I think a lot of coaches work in isolation if they're solo practitioners. So it's especially, I think, helpful for them. But we also have a lot of people who work in companies that don't offer supervision. So they may come to us for that aspect.
Yeah, you know what? I was in Stephen Ministry years ago before I even got into this. They had great coaching training, but they had supervision, and you hardly ever hear anybody talk about supervision. And I've been talking to a lot of coaches lately that I think that supervision is, I think it would be perfect for everybody to be in that because, for us, when we had something that we had, even if we didn't have something that we were having trouble dealing with, but if we had something that we could expand on, just having that group and supervision helped to expand what you could offer to the people that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I really like what you're doing.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate the work that you do.